What's up YouTube, and welcome to my Season 14 Qiyana build guide. Today we will be talking about summoner spells, about runes, and about items. And I will talk about this isolated first, and then in the end of the video, I will give you combinations of these. So which summoner spell, rune, and item combination works well with each other, okay? So stay tuned for that. This will be amazing, and I hope that you will get some really nice learnings out of this. Let's get started. Right guys, let's get started with the summoner spells. You basically have three options here, okay? Three options, nothing more. The first thing is you always run flash. I don't know a single strat, a single build that you would not go flash with, so flash is actually really important. Also with Qiyana there are a lot of flash combos, so you want to be using them. And you can't use them if you don't have flash. So flash is the summoner spell you always want to be taking. And then after that you basically have three options, okay? The first one that I personally prefer the most in most matchups is teleport, okay? I have a matchup tier list, so you can actually check that out, and you can also see which summoner spell I'm using in which matchup. Also, there's a Google Doc that is linked in the description. Then we have Ignite next. Ignite is the next most popular option next to TP, and Ignite is really good in certain rune setups, okay? So if you are playing against a high trading lane, let's for example say Zed, let's for example say Salas, you can run Ignite. I personally only run Ignite in two matchups, against Fizz and against Silas. Reason being is that you can deny Silas W healing with your W, so he basically can't trade back if you time it properly. And against Fizz, it's actually quite easy, because if you don't run Ignite against Fizz, and Fizz always runs Ignite, you will get stomped out of the lane really, really hard. And you need Ignite to fight back, basically. So these are the options that you can go for. You can also play really defensive in those matchups, go for first strike, or like play Electro with bone plating and just sit back. But I think that gives Fizz and Salas prio in every single like scenario, and you don't want to give them prio too much, especially not early on, because they are really snowball heavy champions, alright? So that's my personal exception for like Ignite. There is even a bigger exception with a certain rune build, but I will be talking about that later on when I actually mix these, okay? So when I'm explaining the rune build and which summoner spell you should be going with the rune, then I will be explaining when you can actually go for Ignite, so stay tuned for that. And then there's one last exception, and this is really niche. You can go for Cleanse into certain matchups. Actually, it's only one matchup. Into Zoe, I would actually consider going Cleanse. You don't have to do this, but it's actually really good against her bubble. If you can, because you are not getting hit by her bubble all the time, probably, I mean, I hope so. You will only get hit by her bubble once or twice, probably, like within the cooldown of the summoner spell, right? So like if you have Cleanse, it's actually really easy for you to cleanse the bubble and then just play defensive until you like have the summoner spell again, right? So that's something I really like doing against Zoe, but you don't have to do this. I haven't done this in a real long time, also because I just didn't verse Zoe for a very long time, alright? And with Profane, you have enough damage to one-shot her later on anyway, so you don't really need Ignite or anything else. So I would actually go TP or Cleanse into Zoe. So these are the exceptions. So you always go Flash, and then you can pick and choose between Ignite, Cleanse, and Teleport, alright? Let's actually move on with the runes. Alright guys, when it comes to the runes, you have a couple of options here, alright? The first and most popular option is Electrocute. With Electrocute, you always go Sudden Impact. Taste of Blood and Cheap Shot are not really runes I would consider. We were really scared when Sudden Impact got that changed, but now it's actually like quite broken. People realize it's actually quite strong. So Sudden Impact is actually a great rune to pick. Then you have Eyeball Collection, always. If you play Qiyana jungle, you can maybe go for Zombie Ward and go Umbral, right? That's like one niche, but apart from that, I wouldn't really consider doing that. And then you have these three runes. You can just pick and choose. Every single one of these is fine. They are good for specific reasons. First of all, you have Treasure Hunter. This is just really good, generally speaking. You don't have to get all 5 stacks of it, basically. Just getting a bit more gold for every kill is really helpful in getting your items faster. And remember that getting your items faster will make you get the next item faster as well, because you have more gold spent, meaning you can maybe clear waves faster, etc., right? So this is actually a great rune, and I think it's really underrated. Relentless Sada did get nerfed, so you don't have the 5 base movement speed anymore, but the effect of it is still really nice. So I wouldn't say it's a bad rune, but if I had to decide between going Treasure Hunter, Relentless Hunter, or Ultimate Hunter, I would definitely pick Ultimate or Treasure Hunter here, okay? Then we have Ultimate Hunter. This rune is nice for one specific reason. You automatically get the 6 ability haste for your ultimate. So you have the stack right away, and then you get 5 additional stacks for 5 additional ability haste for every single stack that you get. Meaning that this rune gives you instant value right when you go into the game. So this is actually quite nice. I actually really like this rune. So I would actually decide between Treasure Hunter and Ultimate Hunter depending on your playstyle. But currently I'm actually running Treasure Hunter almost every game. I think the additional snowballing you can get from it is crazy good. Alright, this is basically the page that I go every single time when I run Electrocute. And now we can actually talk about secondary runes that you can pick. When we talk about secondary runes that you can pick, we have Precision, first of all. That's Presence of Mind and Last Stand, or Cut Down. Guys, this is actually a discussion I had really often, and the difference between Cut Down and Last Stand is really simple. You get more damage with Cut Down, generally speaking, because it's applied instantly, like right off the bat in the lane. If the enemy has more than 50% HP, it's applied. The thing is, the higher you get, people are more aware of your killing windows. Meaning, if you get them low with Cut Down, they will just reset, so you can't kill them anymore. So Cut Down does give you more damage, and it can be a good tool to actually get like control in the lane, alright? But for killing reasons, I personally think Cut Down is not the best rune, like at least early to mid. Maybe mid, okay, but like early game, for sure not. It's just good to get like lane control or maybe get a really nice trade in, because your trading early on is even stronger with that. The difference to Last Stand is, the damage you get is less, 100% you get less damage, but it's more relevant, because it's actually there when you are low. So you have that surprise factor when you're actually low and when you are trying to kill enemies. So that's the difference between these two runes, and you have to pick and choose which one you actually want more. So now that we talked about that, this is basically the page that you can go for when you are playing Electro. This really depends on like each matchup, guys. I won't talk about every single matchup. This is not a matchup guide, but you can check my matchup guide if you want, and you can also check the Google Doc in the description. I actually linked it. It's from one of my viewers, and it's like great work. You can see every single matchup there. Next up, we have the Sorcery Tree. Sorcery Tree is actually quite interesting. You can go this in really poke-heavy matchups, because with Sudden Impact and with Scourge, you actually get like 40 true damage, 100% guaranteed, as soon as you like have a dash and you get some nice damage on. So EQing onto the enemy with Grass gives you so much damage early on. This is really nice if you want to play extremely aggressive. And with this page specifically, I would actually go for Ignite if you really want to play aggressive. Alright, guys. Oh, and I actually didn't talk about runes here. This is actually really matchup dependent. I would still like decide this on the matchup, whether or not you go for Ignite or for TP here. Alright. Then we actually have Resolve. I like this page a lot. In most matchups, I'm going Second Wind and Overgrowth, alright? So this is actually a page that you can go into really poke-heavy matchups. Then you actually have Bone Plating as well as an option. This is really good into Fizz, for example. I run this page all the time against Fizz. So that's basically what you can go for with Qiyana into like really hard matchups. Then we have Inspiration. The Inspiration tree is actually there if you know that you can't really kill your enemy, right? But you still want to accelerate your lead. So getting like additional gold from Triple Tonic and Cosmic Insight is just really good here. This is a page that you can definitely run. I'm actually thinking of a matchup where I would go for this. This can be really good into something like Yon or Yasuo maybe. But at the same time, Presence of Mind, Last Stand is probably better into those matchups. So I think this could be good into mages maybe, where you are not getting poked out too hard, right? Maybe against Xerath, but against Xerath you can also go for Second Wind if you're not as confident. But I think if you are confident, you can definitely go for this into some mages. Note that I don't really use this page anymore. Since Minion DMAT is not there anymore, this is not the best page to actually minimize in lane. I think going for Resolve is much better, but it is an option. You can also go for Biscuits if you want a lot of... if you basically want a lot of sustain in lane, and if you want a lot of mana so you can get minions with Q. This can maybe be good against Vex. I don't know. It's one of the things you can try out and just see if it sticks with you. So these are the options that you all have with Electrocute, alright? Next up, we actually have the First Strike page, okay? This is the next page you can run with Qiyana. You have two options here. You can either go for Magical Footwear or Cashback. This is personal preference. I personally enjoy Magical footwear a lot more. After that, I like to go for triple tonic, and then I like to go for cosmic insight. This is just really, really nice for matchups where you can't do anything. So let's say Vex, let's say Set, let's say Renekton, Garen. If those champions are picked in mid lane, it's really easy to go for that. Galio, for example. So that's what I run every single time. Tryndamere as well, of course. Diana is also one of those matchups. So these are matchups where I would definitely go for a strike. Then after that, you have two options. You can either go for the Resolve 3 with Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter. This is great for accelerating your lead even more. So if you can sneak in a kill with First Strike and with boots and with the 40 gold of Triple Tonic and Treasure Hunter, you are getting your items so fast, it's actually crazy. Then we have Resolve. Resolve is actually really interesting. Really, really interesting. But generally speaking, into like really hard matchups where you are getting traded no matter what, this is something you can definitely do. This is also good into some mages if you want to run First Strike. Like, if you really want to run First Strike and you are playing against, let's say, Syndra, I would definitely consider going Second Wind, Overgrowth, and then Longsword refillable. But this is like, you are really going into a really defensive stance here, and I don't really like that too much. So this is only a page that I really run into hard matchups where it's basically impossible to trade back, and I basically always go for this page. Then we have the last page here, which is Conqueror. And with Conqueror, you want to be running this all the time, alright? This right here at the bottom, by the way, like health and scaling, so health scaling, is really, it really depends on the lane. If you are having a hard lane, I would consider going for the health, always, like for the flat health. And if you are going, or if you are playing in a really easy matchup, or a matchup where you don't essentially need the health, I would definitely consider going for the scaling health because it's just much more efficient later on. Alright, and as soon as you hit level 7, this is more worth it because then you have 70 additional health, and right here you have 65. Alright guys, now let's actually talk about Conqueror. This is really interesting. There's one Korean guy that runs Conqueror into basically every single matchup. You can do that if you are really confident. This is a page that's really hard to use, but if you are good at it, it's completely broken because you can sneak in so many solo kills. But I personally don't like it as much because solo kills get really rare in high elo, and that's why I don't enjoy going for Conqueror as much, because it's kind of a flip and it gets outscaled really hard by other runes. So I don't know if I like it that much. It can be an option. You can definitely try it out. And by the way, guys, with this page, you run Ignite every single game. Every single game. I mean, if I play in lower elos, I can also go Conqueror and TP because I know I will kill my enemy. Basically, it's like kind of free, but usually you want to be going Ignite here if you are playing at your level. Because with Conqueror, you have so much kill threat, and Ignite can actually accelerate that by a lot. It really complements the rune page, okay? So Flash Ignite is really, really good here. And guys, that's basically about it with the runes. And now we will be talking about items. And when I talk about items, guys, I will be talking about every single rune page that I would consider going with a certain item path, okay? So let's get into it. Alright everyone, let's actually talk about Qiyana's items here. This is what you guys are most curious about, I know. And there are 4 builds currently that you can go for with Qiyana. But let's actually start with this slowly and talk about her starting items first. You have 3 options. You have refillable longsword, which I personally love. I do this in 99% of my games. You have Dorn's Blade with health potion, okay? This is really good if you run Conqueror. I will be talking about the Conqueror page later on. And then you have Dorn's Shield with health potion, of course. So the thing with Dorn's Shield is, I think if you are an experienced Qiyana player, you don't really have to go for Dorn's in any matchup. You can just go for Longsword and refillable every game. But there is one matchup where I would consider it, for like 2 matchups. LeBlanc is one of those, and Victor is one of those. Since I ban LeBlanc every single game, there is nothing left for me to say. Like, I don't really play against Victor that often because Victor is not as popular right now. You play against Syndra a lot more than you play against Victor, basically, especially in higher elos. So it's actually not that common to face a Victor, right? So that's why I basically go for Longsword and refillable every single game. There's no exception. Unless I go for Conqueror, then I would actually consider going for Dorn's Blade and for Health Potion, but that's not really happening. Then we have the first bag. Guys, these are all the items you can get as your first pack. I won't be covering them because I will be talking about your first pack depending on the build that you are going for, okay? That makes a lot more sense in my opinion. There is one thing I want to say though. You can go for Hexdrinker if they have double magic damage, mid lane and jungle. But you don't buy more after that. So you basically sit on Hexdrinker, get 3 or 4 items, and then you finish more of Memories later on as your 4th or 5th item. You don't really need it earlier because the 30 MR is already like insanely good, and if you go for Mercs as well, it's like crazy. You already have a lot of MR there, and it already helps you to live through a lot of damage. So let's actually talk about the boot options. The boot options are actually quite simple. You have Ionins in 90% of your games, 95 maybe, and then you have Mercs into certain matchups. The tenacity is really nice. The magic resist is great against champions like Syndra, against champions like Zoe. So these are champions I would definitely consider going for Mercs, and especially if they have double AP mid lane and jungle, then it's really, really valuable to go for Mercs. But it also depends on the matchups. It's really hard to cover everything here, right? But generally speaking, that's how I would approach it. If they have AD only, then yes, you can consider going for plated steel caps, especially because they are cheaper now, and it just provides too much value to not go for it. You do lose the 15 ability haste, which sucks, obviously, and also the 12 summoner spell haste, but I think plated steel caps are not bad at all. Definitely not in certain matchups. I know I said something else in my overall Qiyana guide, but I kind of changed my mind towards this, so yeah, definitely would consider those. Okay, let's actually talk about Qiyana's main build here. This is the build that I want Qiyana beginners to go for because it's the most simple build, it's the easiest build to execute, and it doesn't require any thinking, okay? The only thinking it basically requires is whether or not you go Edge of Night or Opportunity. So you rush Profane every single game. First of all, with this main build, you want to be going for Flash and you want to be going for TP or for Ignite, okay? I mean, that's basically how it is. And then after you have the summoner spells out of the way, regarding the runes, you can basically go for everything here, okay? This is not that specific, but I would actually like to go for Electrocute. This is an Electrocute page, I would rather say, actually, now that I come to think about it. So I think with this build, you definitely want to be going Electrocute. And then, I mean, depending on the matchup, you want to be going for Resolve, or you want to be going for the Precision 3. Maybe even Sorcery, right? But that's how I would actually consider this. Or like Inspiration, the build that I basically showed you in the beginning of the video, right? The rune choices that you can go for. Alright. You basically go for Profane. Then you decide, should I go for Edge of Night or should I go for Opportunity? This is like the main decision that you have to make. You only go for Edge of Night if there are champions that can mess you up with like one ability. Malzahar specifically, it's really good against Fizz as well. And it's also really good against Lissandra, for example. But if there are a lot of champions that can proc it easily against you, it sucks a bit, right? And what you can also do, obviously, you can also go for Edge of Night into something like Karthus. If you don't get hit by anything and he uses his R, that's actually really good. And into double mage matchups, like as I said, AP mid and AP jungle, you can also rush Hexdrinker, go Profane, and then go for Edge of Night, then Cyrildas, and then you basically go for Maw. And with Maw and Edge of Night, you are not dying. Like, you are really tanky, actually, and you can also survive a lot of things. Alright, if you go for this basic build, though, so you got Profane, you have Opportunity, and then you have, like, Cyrildas, and then you can basically decide what you want to go for. There's one difference between Sundered Sky and Spear of Shojin here. Spear of Shojin is more for longer sustained fights, where you need your Grasp a lot more often, because it actually gives you additional ability haste for your basic abilities. Sundered Sky is better if you need a little bit more damage. It does have 10 less AD, but the crit is... Oops, excuse me. But the crit is actually really nice. So the crit actually gives you a lot of damage. Your auto attacks deal a lot of damage with this crit, especially onto ADCs later on in the game. So that's the decision that you basically have to make. And then after that, you can sell boots, you can get Guardian Angel, and then you have a really nice and well-balanced build. That's the main build that you can go for. Then we have an anti-tank build. This is the first anti-tank build. There's a second variation as well that I will be talking about after that. The anti-tank build is actually really interesting. You have Opportunity Rush here. Oh, but guys, by the way, what I forgot. You can go for Humos as well. This really depends on the patch and which item is stronger. But since Opportunity got buffed, and I think it's actually the stronger option right now compared to Yumos. I would actually consider going Opportunity over Yumos currently. I really like that item. But this can really change, okay? Then we have an anti-tank build. With this build, guys, and there's no exception for this. You always run Flash. You always run TP. You always run First Strike, and then one of the secondary pages that we talked about, okay? There's no discussion here. No discussion. Because with First Strike, and you have to go cashback. I completely forgot to mention this, but you have to go cashback instead of magical footwear. So you go for cashback, you go for First Strike, and then you basically get Opportunity and Yumos insanely fast because they are really, really cheap. With Cyrildas, you have a lot of armor pen, and you can get Cyrildas really quick because it scales with the lethality that you have, right? So if I actually get Cyrildas now, you can see I have 27% armor penetration. If I go for Opportunity Yumos and then for Cyrildas, I'm already at like 31%, which is absolutely amazing. So it gives you a lot of pen really, really early. And then after that, it might seem weird because you are not going for additional penetration anymore, but 31 is totally fine. I know you are missing out on 9% compared to LDR, but trust me, this is like 100% worth it. Then you go for Sundered Sky and then for Spear of Shojin, or like you can also switch these up. With this build, you have so much damage into tanks if you actually compare this to First Strike. If you compare this to other builds, because you get it like really early, alright? And what you can do after that, if you have these 6 items and you also have boots here, okay? What you do now is you sell one of these 2 items here, Yumos or Opportunity. Currently, I would actually sell Yumos because it's the weak item compared to Opportunity. And then I would actually get Profane. You even get more you should be getting more. Actually, you don't because it's the same lethality amount. I'm trolling, but yeah. Then you actually sell Profane Hydra, and then you have a really well-rounded build, which is insanely good into tanks, right? And then it actually looks really similar to the build above, but it just gets you going a lot quicker, right? And you only do this if you actually go for First Strike. So that's the first variation here. Then we have the second variation here. The second variation, also I actually want to show you this build as well. So you can actually see how it looks finished, right? Whoop. So this is the build, and then you can basically sell boots for GA. And guys, by the way, if you need Edge of Night, you get it second. There's no exception for this. It's the same thing for this build right here. You can also go for Opportunity and then Edge of Night. But if you really need Edge of Night, you go for it second. I don't like to go for it like fourth, because then you delay it a lot. Oh, and by the way, I completely forgot about the starting items here. With Profane, you want to be going for Brutalizer most of the time. If you have something like 650 gold after your first back, what you want to be doing is getting like Boots and Longsword, okay? This is really important. I don't like to go for Dirk into Profane anymore, because it delays your Profane, and having Profane early is really, really nice. Then you have Brutalizer. Brutalizer is the item you want to be going most of the time. There are some exceptions if you want to contest the wave, but it's similar regarding gold, and you get much more stats here. So Brutalizer is the better item 100%, okay? It's actually best to have Brutalizer than 2 Longswords, right? And then just go for Profane with the remaining gold that's needed. Alright. So that's what you do when you actually go for Profane Rush. When you go for Opportunity Rush, you basically just go for Serrated Dirk and then Rectrix. There's nothing to say here. It's like really simple, right? And then after that, you just keep doing the same thing with Yumos. It's really easy to use as well. Then you actually have the tank variation too. Right here, you go for Longsword refillable, and since you have First Strike and TP, this is also really important with this build. You need TP and you need First Strike. So what you do here is you go for Longsword refillable, and then you try to get to 750 gold, okay? And with 750 gold, you can get Tier and you can get Longsword. If the lane is really hard, what you can do is you can actually go for Tier and then just TP back into lane. That will actually help you to use more mana on the wave. So yeah, and then after you have Tier, you basically rush Profane. It delays your Profane by 400 gold, I know, but into some comps this can be good. I'll specify in a moment. And then you go for Profane, you go for Manamune, you go for Eclipse, and then LDR, because you don't have that much lethality. With Eclipse, you have no lethality. With Manamune, you have no lethality. So getting Grudge doesn't give you as much value. So what you want to do is you want to go for Lord Dominic's Regards, LDR, and then for Spear of Shojin. So a build would finally look like this. And then you go for Ionian Boots, or like for the other boot options that you have, and this is like a great build. You have 85 ability haste, which is a lot actually. And then also you have a lot of damage against tanks. Like this build is crazy good against tanks. It's actually crazy. You can't go for this build if you need Edge of Night though, and that's a bit of a bummer, I think. And also it kind of sucks to sell boots here because you want to be getting GA, but you also kind of want Humus here or opportunity because you are lacking a lot of movement speed. So I think this build is great into tanks, but only if they have more than 3 tanks. If they have 3 to 5 tanks and you know this game will last for ages, then this build is really good. Really, really good. Then you can go for it. If that's not the case, I wouldn't touch this build at all because tier delays your profane by a lot. Then I would actually consider going for this anti-tank build here. Now we actually have a Conqueror specific build. As I said, with this build you go for Flash, TP, and you go for Flash Ignite, and you go for the Conqueror page here, alright? So what you want to be doing, you just want to rush Profane, basically. You want to go for Brutalizer and then rush Profane as fast as possible. After that you go for Eclipse, okay? This is a side laning build, by the way. Then you go for Cyrilda's Grudge, and then after that, you can actually, and you go for it because of the ability haste here. So the build would actually look like this: Profane, Eclipse, Cyrilda's, and then you have 29% armor pen. I know it's not that great as for the armor pen, but since you have Eclipse with the percent damage, and you also have Spear of Shojin and Sundered Sky later on, this totally makes up for it. So I really like this build. And guys, look at this. With boots, you have 100 ability haste. This gives you perma invis. This is insane for teamfighting and also for side laning at the same time. No one can fight you with this build. Literally no one. It's so crazy. It's actually insane. So this build is, as I said, really good if you run the Conqueror page because you can stack it really, really easily. You can get a lot of abilities in. And I like this build a lot if you are actually playing the Conqueror page as for Qiyana. Guys, for me personally, there's no other page. I am running the main build page most of the time still, and I am sometimes choosing the anti-tank page here. But honestly, I've been running this main build page for a very long time now, and you can almost run it into like every single game. So this is how I approach itemization with Qiyana currently. As I said, this is split 2. This is patch, I think, 14.13. So remember that things can change, but as for now, this is how I actually approach itemization with Qiyana. Guys, if you are interested in joining my Discord, make sure to do that. It's free. You can still change your mind later on. Subscribe and like. That's also free and you can change your mind later on. And if you are interested in coaching, make sure to check the link down below. Peace out. Bye-bye. I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll catch you in the next video.